So that is a great suggestion there, man. So
we'll see. It's recorded here.
Yeah. Now you're not going to get any royalties from it. Let me just straighten you out right now.
Hello, YouTube. This is Naman. Welcome to my channel, Joaman. Jack of all, master of none. True to my channel. Of all things that I want to be, I want to do. I actually fantasize about being a writer someday. So how do I become one? Well, let's start with the talking to a published writer today. I got guests over, as you can see, Scott Sloane. Oh, you're going by Scott Sloane today. Okay, his pen name is Sloane McQuiston. I rehearsed that, and now you're going by Scott Sloane, Scott.
I'm sorry, I messed up. I didn't mean to.
Go ahead and quickly introduce yourself, Scott.
All right. Hyun and I have been friends for, oh man, years, decades even. And so we go all the way back to college. My pen name is Sloane McQuiston, and that is a combination of my last name, Sloane, and my mother's maiden name, McQuiston. She was the writer in the family, so I kind of use that as a tribute to her. I'm a risk manager with an insurance company, and a couple of years ago, I decided I wanted to write a book. So I started on it, and now I have 2 books done, 2 books published, third one finished, and I'm working on a 4th one. And yes, thank you, Naman. You are holding up my books there. I appreciate that.
Yeah, I got 2 books. I wrote a review on one. I'm going to write a review on the next one.
Yes, we were out of power for about 12 hours.
Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness.
I had a portable generator, but in typical fashion, I failed to maintain it very well. So it took forever to get it started.
Well, of course, you didn't winterize your machines.
That's right.
Whole state of Texas did not winterize their machines.
But I did get it started, so we're doing better. We've got power today. So we're hoping that lasts and that this cold spell will break up here pretty quick and we'll get back to normal temperatures.
Well, I'm praying for everybody. I'm sure people are suffering quite a bit, especially anyway, especially with the COVID and everything. People cannot help each other. I noticed I was watching the news where they want to invite the neighbor over, but they got the power, like you yourself have a portable generator, but they couldn't help them because of the COVID concern and stuff. So yeah. It seems like 2020 is continuing on into 2021.
It does. It seems like this whole decade may be a nightmare.
Oh my goodness! Don't say that. Don't say that. Let's talk about something positive. Let's talk about your book, man. So how do you go from a wannabe writer, like myself, to a published author such as yourself?
Well, it really is just about as simple as deciding you're going to do it, right? The first thing you've got to decide is, I'm going to get started. And that's what I did. The first goal was just get started. And the way I did that was I took my idea, which really was pretty simple. It was the story of an older guy, and it was about how's he going to tell his story. And so I thought, well, who would be good to tell it to? Oh, a grandchild. A grandchild would be good. So I started with an outline, right? And you start building on that outline, and you add events to it, and then you start adding characters to that. And I would advise anybody that's thinking about writing, as you're doing this, have your outline on this side, have your list of characters here, and then have a timeline somewhere, because regardless of what you're writing, novel, nonfiction, whatever it is, it's going to take place over a span of time. And knowing where your characters are within that timeline is really important, and it makes it so much easier to do. So once you get started, then you start writing it, and you just keep writing till it's finished. And once it's finished, right? In my case, I finished it, and that was my goal. And my wife read it, and she was like, "Oh, this is really good. How are you going to get it published?" So that became the next step. I talked with the only person I knew who'd published a book, and she said, "Well, I self-published. Here's the name of the people that helped me, 40 Day Publishing." So I gave them a call. They're right there in Oklahoma City. They're wonderful people.
Wow.
And, we talked it out, and we just decided, yeah, I think this is something we can do. And one of the great things about 40 Day is they really take a little bit of time to get to know the author, what their goals are, what they're trying to accomplish, and they can help you whether you finish the manuscript, which in my case I had, or if you've just got some ideas, you're partway through it or whatever. They can take you through the whole process. And in my case, I had them edit it, which they did, and then they formatted it for ebook, and then for paperback. And we published on Kindle digital printing. So it's really pretty simple. So if you've got an idea, you've got a thought, you've got something you think's pretty good, I would say get started. And then once you're pretty close to finishing, give the folks at 40 Day a call. That's Darlene Shortridge and Dan Mawhinney. You can find them at 40daypublishing.com. And you too can be a published author.
Sounds too easy, man.
Well, you know what? It's easier than it sounds. It's kind of like eating an elephant, right? What's the old saying? How do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. That's exactly how you write a book. One step at a time. Start with your idea, get yourself an outline, start working on that outline. And when you're moderately comfortable with the outline, start writing and see how it goes.
Yeah. Problem with the eating elephant is that do you have enough desire to eat it?
That's a good point. And it's the same way with writing a book, right? You've got to start with, hey, this is something I want to do, and I'm going to give it a shot.
I read the books, both book. I really enjoyed it. Nigel's Adventure. With the first book is Nigel's Adventure with the which one am I? Nigel's Adventure with his
book one.
Grandpa, Steve. Then Nigel's second adventure with the rest of his family and friends. So, assume I haven't read this book. How are you going to promote this to people? How are you selling this book to me? Why should I read it?
Well, that's a great question. And I think the main reason you read it is because you and I are friends. And so I appreciate that.
I like your honesty there.
But to everybody on your YouTube channel who is not my friend, which is probably every single one that's watching this video right now, I would say to you, the story is fairly universal. If you've ever had a grandparent that you thought highly of, or at least respected, or if you've ever been a grandchild, right? I think the story would appeal to you because it's the story of a 5-year-old who gets dropped off with his 99-year-old grandfather. They don't know each other very well, but over the course of just several days, they develop a relationship and a friendship that's beneficial to both of them. The older character, Steve, who's 99, gets an opportunity to tell some stories to his step-grandson that other people just haven't listened to in his entire life. And he finds an audience that's willing to listen to that. And Nigel finds an adult who's willing to treat him as something other than just a 5-year-old child. There's some humor in it. There's some action in it. There's a little bit of sex in it. So I think there's something for everybody.
Okay. Yeah, I noticed there's quite a bit of, especially on the second one, quite a bit of violence in it too, right?
There is more so in the second one than the first one.
Yeah. Okay, I was. Oh yeah, the thing I was going to say. One of the things I wanted to ask you is that did you notice? I noticed it. First book, I feel like I could recommend to even children, because there was some sex and violence in it too, but it felt more like a pirate story. If you know what I mean.
Okay.
You know what I mean? But the second book, it got really greedy when it came to violence. So I would not recommend it to a children. But notice the difference between the two books, or is it just me?
No, I think there's some truth to what you're saying there. And they were not written as children's books by any means. But
Okay.
that doesn't mean that young adults wouldn't enjoy it, right?
Yeah.
But I would recommend to a parent to read it before you let anybody under the age of about 15 or 16 read it. Would you agree with that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Especially the second book. First book, because I saw the Steve's reluctance to share the violent story
Yes.
to his grandkid.
Yes.
It came out a little bit lighter than, even though there was some like violent description in his backstory telling. I saw it a little bit lighter, but in this second book, it was just out there. The violence was out there.
It is, but I think it's appropriate to the story because as you read it, and to the readers who don't know what we're talking about, if you haven't read it, then you wouldn't know. One of the critical elements of it is the discovery of a flash drive, and some people really want that flash drive back. In the second book, they're more motivated to get that back, and they'll use whatever means are necessary to get it back. And so that's part of the progression of the violence, is that sometimes we get involved in things and we think, it's pretty innocuous or whatever, but the deeper we get involved with it, sometimes it can be a little tough to extricate yourself from that. And that's kind of what the second book is about, is Nigel and his family dealing with some things that happened in book one that were out of his control, but now they're having to deal with. And I think a lot of people experience that in life, right? Especially children. They get put in a position by adults or whatever, and now they've got to deal with it. So I think that's really why book two gets a little bit grittier, but hopefully not too bad.
Well, I recommend both books to any adults. You talked about your publisher and how you got it published and everything, but thing that I forgot to ask is your plan of attack on writing books. Can you go over that a little bit more?
Yeah, it's a great question, and I think it's something a lot of people struggle with when they begin the thought or the idea, hey, I'd like to write a book. So in my case, I had an idea that was kind of rattling around in my head for, well, I don't know, 10 or 15 years, and then I finally decided to act on it. And that's where I began with the outline. It started with really pretty simple. Here's the two primary characters, right? Steve and Nigel, and he's going to tell him the story. Okay, well, what is the big story, right? And so I kind of outlined what I thought that might be like, and as part of that, it begins to go, okay, well, what happened prior to the big event? What happened after the big event? And what's happening now on the interaction between those two main characters? And what I discovered as I started the outline was when I started writing, the outline really became more of a way to keep me on track than it was, I have to stick with my outline. Because as I looked at the final product, and then I looked back at my original outline, I had hit most of those ideas, but not in the same order and not in the same length, right, as I had originally proposed. So don't feel like your outline is set in concrete, right? It needs to be very fluid and be very flexible, because as you begin to write, you'll get ideas for different things, for different characters, that sort of stuff. And that's the need to keep a list of characters. I discovered that pretty quick too. As you start to write about things, you'll need characters to do something. One of my favorite characters in book one is Zamir. And
Yeah.
Zamir shows up simply as an Uber driver because I needed a way to send a 99-year-old and a 5-year-old to the grocery store. Well, I figured a 99-year-old probably shouldn't be driving, so he would take Uber. And as I thought about who would this character be, I came up with Zamir. And the more I wrote about him, the more I liked him. And so part of the fun of writing is creating reality out of nothing, or creating your story from nothing.
Right.
You can make characters be anything you want them to be, right? You can make them heroes. You can make them goats. You can make them anything you want, from horrible to awesome. And it's a lot of fun. So that's kind of the process. Keep that list of characters and the timeline, especially, when you're dealing with a 99-year-old man. he's gonna have a lot of life. And so as you begin to tell stories both in the past and things that are happening in the present, you need to know where the rest of those characters are in relationship to that timeline. It was easy with Nigel. He's only 5. He didn't know anything. But as you start looking back about Steve's first family, right, and he still has a son that's alive, so where would he be now? And the same with the rest of his step family, right? Where that Nigel's mom, Nigel's aunt, all those things. Where are those people in that timeline relationship? And having that timeline made it much easier to keep track of, instead of going back, remembering what chapter you wrote that in, and trying to figure out what was going on in the chapter.
But when you're planning the outline and list of character names, like for instance, Zamir, you didn't have him at the end of the story, right? You didn't begin his name right at the beginning, right?
Nope.
Sometimes they're just born and then
they
develop into.
I have found that to be true of almost all of my characters. Okay. When I started with book one, The Drop Off, I had 2, Steve, and then I had a little boy whose name I didn't even know at the time, and I just wrote him as Little Boy. and then the name Nigel came to me, and I was like, oh, I like it. I'm going to use Nigel. And it's the same way when I made Steve's second wife Venus, because she's kind of a funky character. She has a pretty colorful background, and I thought, kind of a funky name would be good for her. And so if somebody's named Venus, what would they name their children? Oh, Marina and Star. Okay, that sounds good. So you just start dreaming this stuff up, and you either like the name and you keep it, or you don't, and you change it out as you go.
Okay. I noticed that a lot of authors, when I read about them, that sometimes they just, as you write, they just write themselves. And is that what you go through?
As cliche as that sounds, it is very true. As you get into the writing, and you'll get into the setting that you're in, and then you'll go, okay, I need a character to do like Zamir. I need somebody to drive these guys somewhere. And then you think, okay, what would that interaction be when they're in the car, right? You've got this 99-year-old and a 5-year-old. One of them probably ain't going to like this guy, right? And so I just made him a very gregarious character. And the 5-year-old was immediately drawn to that. And the 99-year-old was like, dude, just be quiet.
Oh yeah,
right, like old men are. When they're in the
man
car,
was a very cranky old man at the beginning.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so the more I made him larger than life, the more I really liked the character, and I made Nigel really like him. So then Steve kind of has to tolerate him, right? Because now his grandson is like, oh, Zamir the Uber driver is awesome. Right. So, instead of bursting the kid's bubble, he's like, yeah, okay, whatever. Right. And so the characters just kind of develop themselves.
That's what I noticed about my YouTube videos when I make them. Sometimes I just have no idea what I want to make. Right. I sort of have like a little points in case, sort of similar to your outline. I sort of have some points I want to make, right? in between, but I have no idea what direction it's going to be until I start it, until I get on the computer, until I start, either talking or, it starts with my greeting, and then it comes to me and go, okay, this is what I want to say through it. Just sort of the blank sort of fill in as soon as you start. And
Yes.
I think a lot of people like me who aspire to be a writer, is that we just don't dare to start.
Well, and I think that's the beauty of writing, and particularly novels, right? Because you don't have to worry about whether it's the truth or whether you've misrepresented a situation or whatever, because you're creating all of it. And it's very liberating and it's exhilarating, right? You just, like you were saying, right? I'm going to start with these basic ideas and I'm going to see where this goes. And so it allows your creative side to really come through, and it's a lot of fun. And if it turns out you don't like part of it, or you don't like a chapter, you don't like the direction it's going, you just hit backspace and all of it's gone and you start over.
Oh, like undo, huh?
Yeah, undo. Just hit undo. Copy and delete.
What's next as a publisher out there? I know you got third book coming along.
Yes. The third book that I actually have written is not in this series. And
it's not.
It is not in this series. I'm actually working on the third book in this series, but it's not completed yet. Like most authors, I'm still trying to find a literary agent who likes my work. I think I'm up to 60 or 70 rejections at this point. And so I'm still plodding along. I'm sure there's somebody out there who thinks I'm decent, but we'll see. But I want to finish the third book in the Nigel Manning series. And I think that may be it for that. Depending on how that ends. If it isn't the end, then I will probably in book 4 jump forward 10 or 15 years in the future, maybe even 30 years, right? As when Nigel's a man, or when he's going to college, or something like that. Because in these first 3 books in that series, he will not even have aged a year.
Right.
So I can't tell every day of this kid's life. That's not going to hold anybody's interest for very long.
So any last thoughts before we go?
Well, first of all, I want to thank you for the opportunity to speak with you and all your fans on your YouTube channel.
Yeah. My good old friends, guys.
Yeah, there you go. There you go. And I think, I heard Stan Lee quoted one time, and he said, if you've got something that you think is pretty good, don't let your detractors talk you out of it. Go ahead with it, right? And of all the people, Stan Lee, right? He started writing comics like in the 50s or 60s or something.
Yeah.
And he became the most well-known comic writer ever. He's been in multiple movies.
He's more known as a promoter, but that's good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I thought that was a great comment that he had. If you think it's good, just go with it. Don't listen to your detractors.
Right.
And so that's what I would leave you with. If you're thinking about writing a book, regardless of what it is, a how-to book, a fiction book, a nonfiction book, whatever it is, just do it. And if people say, you don't have any credentials as a writer or whatever, man, ignore them. Just do it.
Just do it.
And if you like it, hey, there you go. That's really all that counts. And if I'm telling you, if you like it, somebody else will like it.
Of course. Yeah. Yeah. Create something that you like, and hopefully somebody else will like it. If the 2 people like it, hey.
There you go. Hey, you made somebody else's day.
Yeah.
And that ain't bad.
Yeah. Well, Scott, thanks for coming over. Let's do this soon again.
Okay, that sounds great.
And hopefully I think I do recommend that you get a YouTube channel of your own. I'll provide Scott's website link below, and the link. I guess that website will provide link to your Amazon
Yes.
books, right? So
Yeah, that's
I'll provide link to both of them.
Yeah.
At the description below. And
the easiest way to find the book is go to my website, www.sloanemcquiston.com. And you know, if I become a bestseller someday, you guys can go, I remember that guy when he was on Nam Man's YouTube channel.
by that time, I would have 1 million viewers, you know.
There you go. There you go. Yeah, we'll both be famous by then.
Well, thanks, Scott, for coming over, talking to me. I'm really proud of you that you were able to publish 2 books already within a year and working on 3rd and maybe 4th. So yeah, thanks for coming over. Let's say bye to our viewers.
All right. Thank you,
next time, guys.
Viewers.
Night.
Bye-bye, Nam Man.
Bye, Scott. In broadcast. I'm gonna make a suggestion because I thought about it quite a bit after reading your book, and after I from my last interview, I thought about it quite a bit. I'm gonna make a suggestion. I say it was a fate element to this book, right? And
yeah, to both of them, I would say.
Yeah. It has a fatal. I mean, it has that element in there. Probably next book, you probably want to deal with. This is my suggestion. You don't have to do that, of course. A doubt.
Oh, now that's interesting. Yes, I like that.
You like that?
I do like that. I can see a number of ways to incorporate that in there with kind of,
you know, how when the character grows older, those things grow.
Yes.
Not only fate grows, but also doubt grows as well. So
yes, it does. And questions, right?
Yeah.
If you're not able to question your faith at some point, I don't know that you can grow in your faith, right? And I think everybody struggles with that at some point. So that is a great suggestion, Nam Man. So
it's recorded here.
Yeah. Now you're not going to get any royalties from it. Let me just straighten you out right now.